Can we have it on the screen, please? Mr. Vishal Kapoor, CEO, IDFC Mutual Fund. And are we ready? Are we ready? Yes. Because this is a company which has engaged us with so many tools that we have really influenced and engaged our clients in a big way. So I think for those tools, we should first of all applaud for IDFC Mutual Fund in a real big way, because that has made our work a lot more easy. So thank you very much for all the tools which you have provided us, and over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, firstly, big thank you. Thank you to the organizers for having us. It's a real privilege. It is my first time here. And I must confess at the outset that when I looked at the topic we were given, I must say that I had only a very fuzzy idea about what practice management is about. It can mean so many things. So nowadays, what do we do when we don't know about something? We reach out and, Google, that's right. So that's exactly what I did. So I said, okay, let's turn to Google Uncle and ask him what practice management really means. And this is one of the more, in a sense, the summarized sort of version of practice management I could find, which I thought I'll just quickly share with you. And actually, if you look deeper, it may not have anything substantially new than what you and I are already doing in some ways. So I know it's a small text there, but it does talk about having goals and converting goals into tasks in some form, and then executing these tasks, and make sure that after you execute this task, you go back and learn and see if it really worked or did not work, and then go back to redesigning and going back to goals. So this is all very nice. It can really apply to any practice, any management. And I think if you have to push deeper and ask ourselves, how does it apply to us? And is this really going to help us? So I asked ourselves, in our practice, what are the 2 or 3 basic things we do and that can possibly help? Now, I know I'm guilty of summarizing too much, but in one way, we really break up our practice into these 2 or 3 buckets, right? There is the entire field of investment science. This is all about knowing technology, the expertise about investing and the macro data, and we heard the investment gurus this morning, but essentially knowing a lot about investments. There is the second aspect, which is equally important, which is about operations and the servicing, the bricks and mortar, the actual making the transaction happen. And I know all practitioners will agree that that's often equally important. So you may have the best investment expertise and advice to the client, but if you cannot settle the transaction smoothly, it doesn't work. So that's also equally important, operations and servicing. And the third aspect is about branding ourselves, marketing ourselves. And if we take a moment to pause and think, actually that's where it starts. If we can't brand and market ourselves, the first 2 won't exist, because we won't have a customer to go and offer investment advice to, and we won't have any deal to actually transact on. Now, the question is, okay, this is understood. We have to brand, market ourselves. We have to find clients. We have to get technical expertise and be able to perform the settlement of our transactions to be able to move ahead. I think that's still a given. But we also have to think about, is that enough? Is that going to be enough? And I know Nilesh talked about just a few minutes back about the fact that the world is so rapidly changing. And if I have to ask ourselves, what is the biggest challenge in front of our practice? What would that be? If the the landscape is changing so rapidly, is this the traditional model going to be enough? I know someone mentioned yesterday, I believe, that, will we become the Kali Pili in the face of Uber with so much technology coming our way? And that's what I thought we will maybe spend another 10, 15 minutes talking about, thinking about, which is what can we do to make sure that our practice is actually, in one sense, change-proof to the extent we can. So that's what I'll spend the next maybe 10 minutes about. Now, thinking a bit broadly about this, we came across some work that I thought all of us will relate to. When we start our practice, we are essentially looking for a customer, but to the customer, we have to offer some expertise. Otherwise, why should the customer come to us? So we start with reading up and becoming technically competent. We go through universities, we pass exams, we get certifications, we learn about the business. And hopefully we get a task, which is, make the first application, the first investment that comes our way. If we can execute those transactions systematically and seamlessly for some time, maybe over time our practice progresses for us to get recurring business. So the customer is comfortable after trying us out, and then we get recurring business. Right? So then we've progressed our practice. But I believe what we need to do now is move to the right-hand top quadrant, which is really become advisors, because just transaction execution, as we all know, a machine can maybe do equally well. So that's not going to be enough in the future. If the customer has to be with us, what else can we offer which a machine and a lot of algorithms cannot offer at the back end? So that's the problem or the challenge in front of us. Now, I cannot pretend to offer you a lot of solutions. All I can do is give you a few thoughts based on certain research and work we've done. So it's just in the spirit of sharing. So just please keep that in that space. So the question is, how do we become or move from being an expert, which is what we focused on so far, gaining knowledge and gaining licenses and gaining a lot of also experience with our customers and being very good at processing transactions, to truly an advisor. In that, I think there's a good quote that that struck us, which is, people really don't care how much you know till they know how much you care about them. And we have to think, is that the crux of trust, caring about the customer? Now, how do we do that? If we have to become more trustworthy, what do we do? And here I'd like to use, again, I'm leaning on some good research, Simon Sinek's golden circle, which actually puts it upside down. So it's not really focusing on the what. It's first focusing on the why. Why do you do what you do? And that's at the heart of actually any service that we provide. So think about it. If we just have been focusing on what we are doing, if that's not going to be good enough, because the customer may not necessarily develop trust in you, and therefore it can be taken away by a machine. Can a machine really take away why you do something? And if the heart of this is really in really your purpose and belief for the customer, then that's a great starting point. The next one is, how do you do it? How much passion, how much energy, and really how do you deliver the solution? And then the what can follow. So suggestion number one is that maybe we can start with the why. And I must say that I'm really struck meeting a lot of advisors today who are incredibly passionate about their customer. So nothing else really comes in front of what the customer's true needs are. And that belief, that passion, to our mind, is the crux of the why. Why will the customer be with you? And why is the question of, why we're here. So that's thought number one. The second thought about trust, which is about empathy. Now, it's a complex word. What does empathy really mean? How do we do something that can help us get empathy from the customer in our journey to building trust? Very simply, if you look at some research, and of course, we look at each other, we have 2 ears, 1 mouth. We really have to question, if we have 2 times the hearing capacity than the speaking capacity, are we really utilizing or taking this hint that nature is giving us as an advisor? Science also tells us that when we speak, certain things happen in our body. It releases a chemical called dopamine, which makes us more comfortable and relaxed and happy. So we like speaking, because there is something naturally going on in our brain which says, yeah, go on, speak up. But as an advisor, we may have to just suppress that a lot more and go back to listening, not just hearing, listening. And there's an interesting model I'd like to share around that, which is called the RASA model, which is, as a good advisor, we've just got to firstly listen twice as much. And while we are listening, we have to, of course, receive the full message, appreciate and acknowledge what's happening. Maybe at the end, summarize and then ask questions. So that's just one additional thought I'll leave with you, which is, in our journey to build trust, let's listen most of the time and then ask the questions after summarizing what we've understood of the client's situation. Another beautiful quote which I thought, that you may have come across. This is about people forgetting what you said. They will forget what you did, but you will not forget how you made people feel. Very powerful thought. And I thought, if we have to really gain our clients' trust over time, we have to focus on how the customer feels much more than what we did. So the best advice and the best portfolio returns, and I'm sure all of you have gone through these situations, may or may not yield the results versus the time when your customer felt good about receiving the advice that you gave. Therefore, I think our job is much beyond just recommending some financial solutions. Keep in mind, 5 years back, we used to think about financial products and we moved to financial solutions, and we think that's it. The solution is the end of what we are trying to offer. The reality is there are events that happen in the client's life, and there's a lot of study going around this as well now. And the event is actually just a piece of data or a fact. But what matters is how your customer perceives that, which is dependent on what the emotion was. So the same event can be seen very differently by your customer. And that's where maybe as an advisor our role comes in, which is what can we do to shape those emotions in a way that the same event can be seen differently. So markets go down. I'm sure you will have different customers reacting differently, right? Some will want to buy more, some will get fearful, right? So with the same event, we may want to focus more on managing the emotion. And I know a lot of successful advisors tell me that, our job is not managing money or doing anything, it's about managing emotions, and so true. Isn't that what we do 95% of the time? Hold the customer's hand. Yeah. That's a sure step or a more sure step towards becoming a trusted advisor, so that we're not getting compared to machines. And the last point I'll leave with you is that, and this is just personal experience, I may have been guilty of doing this all the time as well. If there is bad news, we will duck. We will not take calls, we will become incommunicado, the customer's returns expectations are not being met, etc. Now, that can't really be true if you're a true partner. Partnership means always being connected. And in a day and age where you have technology in your palms all the time, there are multiple ways in which you can connect, and it doesn't always have to be a phone. So the last thing I would leave with you is that I often see and come across individuals including myself, who've suffered by not taking that call or not being connected when the need arose, when the client really needed advice. So if that's something that we can overcome, always be connected. And there are so many means of doing that. It doesn't only have to be a phone call. Then that can be a great way to build further in this journey of becoming a true advisor. So just to summarize, if we have to now adapt to what's coming in the future, and I refer back to the great talk about how things are changing all around us, we will need to move from expertise to advisory. And in doing that, we'll have to look at all the aspects how we approach our customer and our business today, and maybe remodel that around some of these lines. So it's not just depth of knowledge, it's also breadth of knowledge. What else do we know about our trade? It's not just about telling or advising the customer about what to buy or what to invest in, but also listening twice as much. It's not about just good answers, smart answers about which product to buy. It's actually great questions. It's not about personal, professional, but it's also personal. Unless we connect it at a personal level, this is going to be difficult. It's about collaborating. It's about insights. And to end, I'd end with a beautiful poem, a song, which I think may be an aspiration for all of us. तू जहाँ जहाँ चलेगा, मेरा साया साथ होगा, मेरा साया. So I'd wish you all the best. I hope we can become the shadow for our customers and do a great job in taking the next step from here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for that interesting insight. May I request Mr. Lalit Somani from Hyderabad? Or Mr. Partho Sinha? Mr. Tirupati Rao, please, from Vizag. Thank you, sir.